Hello and welcome to Minute of the Apes, the daily podcast where we break down every damn dirty minute of the Planet of the Apes 1 minute at a time. I'm Todd. As always, I've got Rich and Sean with me at the table here at Zeus Comics.
Hey guys, welcome.
We are in our Tuesday, if you're listening to this, as the week comes along.
Month, yeah. This is not a leap year, so we only got one more day after this.
Okay.
Yep.
So we're at minute 102.
Yep.
We're approaching the end of the film. Sean kind of set the stage for us.
We are, actually. I think we got like 11 minutes after this. We're going to start minute 102 with Lucius saying, I can do that, and ends up with Taylor saying, you led me around on a leash. And as of minute 102, we got 2 living humans, 2 confirmed dead, 1 dead ape, a shootness of apes, and a gaggle of humans.
So we kind of teased this in the previous minutes that we're leading into conversations that at least have come to a head.
Mm-hmm.
Things that have pervaded the whole film are now being laid out. But what I find interesting right away before we get to those is that Taylor is reverting back to when they were that cart that he couldn't get out of that you guys found it so humorous how he got. He's back to his demands of going off on his own.
Oh, yeah. He pulled a little dog day afternoon here at this point. All right. I want a gas car and an airplane at the airport and $50K in unmarked bills and no cops. If I even smell a pig, everybody dies. I mean, what the heck?
He basically gave a grocery list. So Taylor finishes the last minute saying, I want you to go run those rocks to Lucius. I want you to go run those rocks. Tell those gorillas I've got Dr. Zay's prisoner. And Lucius starts, we finished the last minute with him saying, yes.
Yeah.
Lucius says, I can do that. And then Taylor says, I want a horse, food, water, enough for a week for me and this female.
Yeah, what is that?
That really stood out to me he called her female.
He really negged on her right there, yeah.
Well, look, we each have spouses. When I speak about my spouse, I speak in the most derogatory terms that I possibly can. Nothing says I love you, honey, like saying the female. Oh, my God. Thank God she's deaf and dumb or whatever you would call it.
Because hate me.
I'll have a T-bone steak. The female will have some pancakes.
This chick would like nachos.
Yeah. She should taint punch him so hard. Pow!
It was a little... It was just a little like
on the nose,
list and for a week for me and this female. But that's a Charlton Heston kind of thing to say, though, right? I mean...
Okay, is Charlton Heston as an actor, does he go at that point? Because we've already kind of said, even when it gets to the famous quote at the end, he fought the censor board to keep the GDs in there and things like that. So he had that power at this time.
GDs? Oh, my goodness. Watch your language, sir.
I just didn't want to have to beep it. And don't you say it because I don't feel like beeping anything. I'll beat you. Does he, because he's a very machoistic kind of guy, does he chirp in and say, I want to just call her the female, or is that something that the different screenwriters put in there to personify the character of Taylor?
Okay, so when he says, I want a horse, food, water enough for a week for me and this female, and 50 rounds of ammunition, which is very specific. 50.
Yeah.
50 does not go very far.
That's not very long,
The script that I had originally have here said, good, I want a week's supply of food for the woman and myself, a horse, a spade. But he
wants to plant.
He calls her a woman.
Mm-hmm.
In the first,
which is
later on in the actual cut, he says female.
Is that not weird? How that's slightly less derogatory? The woman as opposed to the female.
Wait, the female is derogatory, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
The woman is.
Yeah.
Hey, her.
The not ape person.
Neither one in the context is good, but the woman it sounds less bad than female.
I want to know. I needed a spade. Am I thinking of I'm thinking of a gardening spade.
He's going to replant that one plant that they all 3 dug up with one hand.
Got that
He's still got it on his mind.
Oh, look at this little tumbleweed we found in the desert.
Back.
We're going to live off of this.
Take nothing but pictures, see nothing but footprints. I will never forget it. I will fix my error.
And 50 rounds of ammunition.
So, real quick, I did look up you asked about the rifles they used. Those were World War II carbine rifles, and they do, if you look at the actual rifle, the clip goes right past the finger, the trigger.
Yeah.
The cartridge is right there. So they've built that wood around it to mask it.
Okay.
But then I looked in one shot, and as he's holding it, you can see the cartridge. There's a little cutout, so it's almost like they have the cartridge where you can slide it into the wood.
Okay.
There is a cartridge there.
All right.
It just made me think of it.
Lucius then asks, what if they don't agree to your terms? Taylor says, then tell them I'll shoot him.
Okay.
Cool.
So once again, tell him I'll shoot him. There's one of me, and there's
15 of them or whatever.
A gaggle of
apes
over there.
All right, but okay,
shrewdness of apes,
he's
my
a
bad.
wild and crazy human. I mean, he could go unhinged.
He's a macho human. He is ready to plow down.
Exactly. So I would legit take his threat serious because he's not. They already think humans are crazy, and now they've got one that can talk with a gun that's got the minister of science and religion.
I'm just seeing. I'm seeing Blazing Saddles of the human. He's crazy. He's got his gun to his head. He'll do it. He's a crazy human. He'll do it.
Okay, so how bad would it be for the ape culture if he did kill Zeus? Is there somebody, does Honorius step in his position?
Is he so irreplaceable that if he died, would it destroy the culture, or could he be replaced and they could hide the fact that a human killed him?
Yes.
I'm just picturing the gorillas and this are going, doing that kind of up and down thing with their hands like they're weighing. Like
the movie ends 10 minutes earlier. With
Zeus is kind of a bitch. He's always on my back.
Right.
Honorius,
well,
man, we hang out sometime and we smoke a little bit.
I do.
Zeus served me up that one time.
I do owe Zeus a couple of TPS reports. If he wasn't here, who knows?
But, so why is it that they need to protect him so much? Has he instilled himself so much as that he's almost the current place lawgiver?
He does seem to be in control of everything. I mean, he did seem to kind of run that court a little more than anybody expected.
We have no defined how the hierarchy goes here. For all we know, he is the equivalent of the president.
True.
So killing him might not be an option because it's a big to do once the president dies.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What?
Oh, there's a lot of politicians I wouldn't mind. That,
We're not getting into minute of the dead presidents.
minute of the
I'm
politicians.
talking about
Okay, so
money,
no matter what you do, I
politics.
think anybody, it's the truth of human nature that you're going to say things like, there are people I wouldn't mind if they were gone.
Yeah.
And the truth is, it's a horrible statement to make, but the truth is we all feel that way inevitably about somebody, right?
I just love there's this value judgment about whether, do we kill Zeus?
That's
Do we let him
exactly
kill
it.
Zeus or do
Yeah.
this? Like, he's another politician.
Okay, there's another comic book that can be made. It's almost like, what was the Batman comic about the Gotham PD or whatever?
Gotham Central?
Gotham Central. So now you can make it about the
law
gorillas.
force of the gorillas, what they do every day.
The gorilla force or something like that. And it could be their thoughts about what's going on, that they have all the root and the power.
I need you to understand that there's only so much complexity in drawing faces and outfits that they can do. And one of the reasons comic books are really easy to read is because these characters wear giant superhero outfits.
Mm-hmm.
The minute you get into a book that actually has people wearing normal clothes, it kind of gets hard to start distinguishing them from one another unless they have eccentric features like ridiculously blonde hair, always wears a hat, or something like that. I could not even imagine following a comic book of just all gorillas
Apes.
doing all the
Okay,
blue
but
clothes.
the one we've talked about, the Ursus one, has a ton of that in it. And you're right. In Ursus, definitely, and you'll see this in the coming movie, wears a very particular headset.
You
so
have
it's
to do
easy to
something.
distinguish
Exactly.
them.
You have to.
That's a good point. So maybe they could all have different coifs of hair. They could have a Donald Trump
We could
coif.
have one, the ocean seaside hair.
Yeah.
The
different
Are you saying all
blouses that they
gorillas
wear.
look alike, Richard?
You racist. Speaking of racist,
I could resist
Zero
that
said
at
it
all.
about humans. It's fine.
Yeah.
But so she says, "Tell him I'll shoot him," and Zero's like, "Taylor, you can't." It was really kind of like,
Right.
Taylor,
I
you
think
can.
he can. I think he totally will.
But Zeus uses that moment to prove a point. He's
Right.
a born killer. It plays right into his hand of why he thinks this whole endeavor, not just what's happening on the beach, but what's in the cave, all of it.
Oh yes, he can. He's a born killer. Deliver the message.
Okay, I've told you before, you do a fantastic Zeus voice, but if you're going to do it, you have to put your hands over
You gotta muffle it a little bit. You gotta get a bit of Bane with your.
I have a one beer Zeus voice and not. I lose no beer, no Zeus voice. One beer Zeus voice. Two beers. No Zeus voice.
We're going to pause this real quick so Richard can down another beer so we get 2 beers Zeus voice.
And we return to our podcast.
Well,
Zeus?
this is the pinpoint, though, to me, when he does that. This is the pinpoint of what we talked about, where the questions are about to be answered, because he
hates humans so much and all that.
That was the turn of the page. That was, you've opened yourself to this conversation, Taylor. here it comes.
Well, but that's in our Wednesday minute.
I'm just saying this
in our modern minute.
I'm just saying that's what this means to me. That's the turning of the point when we come to that conversation.
I think at this point you can see that Zaius literally is a racist because he hates Taylor so much because he's a different race. He has a different point of view, saying how much they eat the crops and all that kind of stuff. He literally hates Taylor. He is literally a racist because it's a different species, a different race. He hates him so much.
Well, and I think that to that point, Sean, is that this gets into the racist idea because even, in the coming seconds, we have Taylor talking about when Zira says don't treat him like that, it's humiliating, and then Taylor
when
throws
he ties
his little
him up
bit,
and everything,
that it's okay. It's very much the conversation of it was okay to treat Taylor a certain way because he's a savage kind of thing, but don't do this to him because he's dignified.
Oh, for sure.
The more intelligent, the more
So that's where we get into these conversations.
So Isaiah says, oh, yes, he can. He's a natural born killer. Deliver the message. So go ahead and deliver the message. We know what's going to happen. I guess he knows, that he's going to get his horse or whatever. And it gives with...
You said horse, right?
Horse.
All right, just make sure.
Deliver the horse. Well, with deliver the horse and the food and the spade and the woman and whatever. So Zaius at this point, I think is, yes, he can. He's a born killer. Deliver the message. Unless there's another plan, he's like, deliver the message because Taylor will get these things, and therefore I can now be a different ape. I can now be a little more frank than even I was up in the dig site. Right? And I guess we'll move into the next minute when he does that. But what I find interesting is Taylor kind of does this thing, the script direction, which is pretty much what he does. Taylor sets the rifle against the trunk, fashions a noose, places it around Zaius' neck. Then, using an ingenious combination of knots, he ties Zaius' hands behind.
An ingenious combination of what?
Knots.
Knots.
He ties Zaius' hands behind his back and finally fastens the rope around the base of the tree. And he does just that. It's a pretty kind of aggressive.
It is.
To which I had a little note saying that Taylor gave Zaius a taste of his own medicine by tying him up by his throat.
And I'm sorry, once again.
The noose. Yeah, exactly. The description also on here is noose. But yeah,
once again, it plays into what the 1968 would have been dealing with hog tying people and things like that.
And specifically the use of a noose.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very much so.
And boy, he
was aggressive with that. Yeah.
Zaius, though, has been pampered all his life, apparently. Even on the school ground, he never got beat up by the other kids because, boy, once Taylor does a little bit of aggression.
Yeah.
He's a prima donna.
So we get Zira saying, Taylor, please, don't treat him like that. Taylor's like, why not? It's humiliating.
It's humiliating. Oh,
whoa.
I
know. Yeah, no doubt.
It's humiliating. I've only been in a cage for the last couple of months, been hosed down, been
other humans flinging dung on me,
subjected to breeding, put in a kangaroo court. You threaten to castrate me, but I
it's
tie
humiliating.
him up.
It's humiliating by all of you. The way I was humiliated, you led me around on a leash.
Ding.
And he has a really, really valid point at this point.
Yeah.
Granted, he's still being crazy, aggressive to
vindictive,
to Zaius in this particular moment, in the way that he's actually treating him as a prisoner,
right?
For sure. But he's completely justified in his reason why he's doing that way.
Right. Yeah, I had a little note. So people shouldn't be punished because it's humiliating. Welcome to office life.
So there was another note in the script that had Taylor giving, after Taylor kind of ties him in the noose and ties him to the trunk of the tree on the ground. Taylor then says, now, Minister of Science, let me explain certain principles of stress and strain. If you exert pressure to remove these bonds, you'll choke yourself to death. It'll be suicide, you see.
Yeah.
That was that. And so when Zira says, Taylor, please don't treat him like that, why not? It's humiliating.
And he's saying you're going to choke yourself to death if you struggle, yeah.
It was just kind of like, I can see why they would take that block out of the text.
Yeah, because it's not necessary. I can see if
it's not necessary.
You just have to see Zaius struggle a little bit and get a little tighter around him.
But it also gives a little more answers to why Zira is so shocked. If he had really said that, he'd be like, "Oh, why'd you?" Okay.
Even though, and I know it's the wrong character in there because Edward G. Robinson was originally supposed to play this, and when you got to the end, you said, "You see." All I could hear was that, "You see,
yeah,
you see."
Listen, monkey, listen. See, don't tie me up.
All right, there we go. We've got one.
How great would that be if it had been the 1930s or the film noir gangster?
Yeah.
Say,
The lawgiver. He says, "Do this." You see, you can't do that. The lawgiver says it's not good.
We're gonna have to
Mutants. Yeah, you see, eat everything. I wonder if